The Rio reserves the right to remove any participant from any WSOP event at any time if the participant is removed from the WSOP event pursuant to this paragraph, and for no other reason, the participant shall not be entitled to compensation. They're saying we can remove you for any health and safety reason if we determine that you have COVID or that you've been in close proximity with someone that has COVID.
I'ma give it all I got, like grinding every day, ain't no other way.
Welcome back to another episode of Embrace the Grind. We are back with the resident co-host, Andrew Moreno, tournament poker extraordinaire. Things have been going crazy for him on the tournament scene. We talked about it in a recent episode. He was on the most insane of hot streaks. I think you were like 9 for 9 at one point.
Yep, 9 for 9.
And then you went to Choctaw, Oklahoma, played, and you ended up not
Goose
cashing.
egg. They
No cashes. So
showered me quick, man.
So
They
I
brought me
guess
back.
that it's time for a little bit of a celebration. We celebrate. The heater has, well, I'm not going to say that it's over, but it's there's a pause in it.
We're on pause.
You're going to take a little break. Got a baby coming.
Yeah.
Time to kick back.
Enjoy.
A San Diego IPA here in San Diego. I've been in Vegas.
It's good
for
to
a
have you
while.
back, bro. You were gone for what, like a month almost? Longer?
Yeah, on and off for like 2 months. Basically, we locked down that place in Vegas, and you know, you kind of got me like on the tournament bug even before you had like your crazy success. It's something that we kind of both talked about during quarantine. And obviously out of the gate, you just had like the most insane run, racking up $2.5 million on your hand and mob. It's like so insane. Anyways, that cost me a bit of money. Everybody was asking, by the way, I did not have a piece of Andrew in this tournament. One of the things that we do is we will swap with each other in tournaments that we play together. But I didn't want to play in this tournament because I felt like the tournament field was going to be very tough and the best players were going to be firing multiple bullets. I wasn't prepared to fire upwards of 6 bullets in a 10K. So I sat this one out, and this is the one that you won. So no swaps on that, no piece of your action. But beyond that,
I remember this. The tournament, the first tournament I won in Vegas, you had been buying pieces of me at the time, or swapping or something like.
No, I was basically buying pieces. Like, okay, you were selling me good pieces of your tournaments.
Yeah, and I think I had just sold you 1 or 2 pieces, and I didn't cash, and I felt really bad.
You felt terrible. You're like, I don't want to sell to you anymore because I don't want to lose money that you're giving me.
Yeah, and so then I was like, look, the next tournament I play, I'm gonna give you a 10% free roll, and
for like no money invested.
Yeah, just for this one time, and then I got first place. It was
you won that. That was, I think it was a win tournament.
It was a Venetian tournament. It was a $400 buy-in, and it was like almost 60K.
Yeah, so we peeled off 6K to get me unstuck on staking you in tournaments.
That's so true. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up in case you forgot, because that one was 7 years ago.
That was a nice one. But beyond that, I was going to mention your tournament success. In the short term, it's cost me some money because I did have the tournament bug already, but the tournament bug has gotten a little bit stronger since then. And we ended up firing on some local tournaments in Vegas. There was some Venetians going on. There was a win going on. The Venetian was a $2,400 buy-in. That one was really frustrating because I was in a really good position to cash that one. I think we were both in that one.
Yeah, you were at the table next to me when you busted. So I watched the.
Yeah, we were one table over, and I had a ton of chips like going towards the end of the day, and I got sat at a really tough table with 2 tough players on my left. Matt Stout, shout out to Matt Stout, and Base Baldy. What's his first name?
Eric Baldwin.
Yeah, also a really tough player. And they were both on my left, and I was just dwindling down a little bit, and finally picked up aces on the last orbit of the night. And I actually could have folded my pocket aces in this spot, but given that it was aces and I had been kind of getting beat up a little bit, I just didn't want to fold it in that moment. And we were out of the tournament at that point. $2,400 swing down, didn't feel good. But I ended up investing money in the WSOP online circuit or bracelet series, which was basically the entire month of July. Let's no limit hold'em on the river here.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
That was so much fun. I was live streaming them. At one point we had like 2,100 people watching one of the live streams. I almost final tabled a couple of them and ran deep in, I don't remember exactly how many I cashed, but I think 5 or 6 caches. And a lot of people were like, you did really good. Like, because they just kept seeing me go deep and they kept seeing the caches and everything. But one thing that people don't understand is that I wasn't profitable. Like you see these like deep runs, you see these caches. I'm like fired up, like everything's going really good. But at the end of the day, when the dust settled and all was said and done, I invested around $16,000. I think it was 16,500. I'll put the exact numbers on the screen. 16,500, and I cashed for around 10,000. So I essentially lost 6,500 playing tournaments, online tournaments in this month, and it's hard, man.
Yeah, but that experience you got, I mean, you played for how many days, how many hours, and you're playing online, so you're seeing so many more hands. I think come time for the World Series, that whatever $6,000 tuition fee that you paid for playing all those tournaments is going to be worth so much more than that. I was curious because, like, when you play so many tournaments, right, you're day in, day out, and you're playing online, you're seeing all these hands, and it's new for you because you're a cash game guy. You've been a cash game player for a long time. Obviously, you've dabbled in tournaments before.
But I never played online tournaments except for pre-Black Friday. So this is actually the first time that I played online MTTs, big field MTTs, since then.
So was there anything that I would say, I asked, like, did you learn something? If you could, like, have any big takeaways from this experience, seeing so many hands, going deep, anything stick out to you?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a couple things that stick out to me. First of all, my poker intuition and like hand reading and ranges and things like that transfers over to tournaments really well. So things like knowing which board textures to continue on, knowing when to shut down, knowing when to put the gas pedal on or kind of take my foot off the gas. Those things kind of transferred over, but the parts that I really needed a lot of work on and that was really eye-opening for me were there was a couple, like the stages of the tournament where you approach the money. I wasn't sure, like I don't really know any of that ICM stuff. I don't know how aggressive to be in those spots. And there was one tournament where I busted on the stone bubble basically. It was hand for hand after I busted. And
Twitter saw that.
Twitter saw it, yeah. And the consensus was that I made a mistake there. The ICM tool said that I marginally made a profitable play, but it was close. So those kinds of things. The other thing was playing from the blinds. So in the tournaments in the middle to later stages, there's a lot of min raising going on. And since there's a big blind ante in play, the price that I'm getting to defend from the big blind and to even call from the small blind sometimes is really good. And so like the whole like deck opens up that I can be defending with. And I wasn't really sure like how to play from the small blind. And I think I was overfolding from the small blind for sure. And then from the big blind, I probably overfolded a little bit. And one of the things that was eye-opening for me was Jesse Sylvia. I played with him one day. I actually had a couple of tough tables. There was one day where I was in a 6 max tournament. And at my table at one time was at the same table, Jesse Sylvia, Ryan Reese, and Ali Izmirovic, and me, and like 2 other guys that were solid. I'm like, this is like, it was like $1,000 buy-in. I'm playing with like some of the world-class players, So I started watching his stream, and he promotes this software called Floptimal. And I just started digging into Floptimal and looking at the ranges that I should defend from the big blind and how I should be playing. And it was eye-opening. Like, wow, I should be calling way more. So I have so much work to do on my blind play. I have so much work to do on just my 30 big blind to 20 big blind play in general and approaching the money bubble. And there's so much that I can go through and learn, and that I will go through and learn. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to record all the hands, is because now I can go back and like,
You and I can go over a lot.
We can go over it together, but I'm going to splice together like every single time that I was facing a raise from the big blind, and just like put them in every single tournament, what stage I was at, and then just go through Floptimal and like, did I make a bad fold here? Did I call there's so much work that I can do. And
doing that work is important. So for the people out there at home that are, I mean, obviously we're talking about poker. A lot of your audience is the audience is poker. studying big blind versus button, or cutoff versus button, or cutoff versus big blind, or small blind versus big blind, it's so important because these situations come up all the time. You know, how many times in a tournament does it fold to the button and they raise for one big blind and you're going to continue? It's just so frequent, and it's very, it's a deep ocean to set out into. It's very interesting, and it's by no means solved. So
I mean, I don't want to get overly technical on this, but the other part of my cash game instincts were like when I was at 26 big blinds or 20, you know, in that range, somebody would raise and I would have like queen 10 suited or something in position. I'm like, my cash game instincts were like, oh, you can call with this hand. There's not enough big blinds in play, you know, but like good tournament players like will flat hands like this. And like I was folding in spots where I should be playing more. So yeah, I'm going to dive back in and go through a lot of that stuff. And I'm going to go to Cabo in about a week and a half, 2 weeks or so, and play a couple of the GG events. I just love it. Like, I love the streaming. When something would not go right, I would like yell. I would like toss the chair over. And like when things would go well, I would like fist pump, like, yes. Like it was a brand of poker and a version of poker that I'd never really experienced as someone who's been a live player and who's the ultimate professional at the poker table. You know, bad beat, whatever, nice hand. Like, don't do that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, tournaments are special too, in that the pressure mounts. So, you know, especially when you're approaching money bubbles and final tables and things like that, you know, there is a lot more. You see that a lot more in tournament poker. If you're at the World Series or wherever, someone's going, yeah, let's go. You know, all that stuff. Like, you don't see that at like high stakes poker games, any poker games really. And it's because the amount of big blinds in front of people, it's not life changing for people.
Yeah.
But you get into a lot of situations where, you know, the money is substantial, if not life changing. And, you know, you win one of those flips with, you know, 6 figures in equity or 5 figures in equity. And yeah, I think it deserves a little fuck yeah, right?
Yeah, but if you were at a casino, you wouldn't do that. I mean, you had some couple deep runs recently here. Like, you won 2 tournaments recently that were 6 figure. One was 7 figure. And that was like the first place prize. And there was multiple moments where it was like you were all in and it was like a card came.
Yeah.
You weren't like, yeah, I like, you know what
I mean, on the inside, I'm a little bit of I'm more of a pro in that way too, but I definitely celebrated some.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before we move any further, we have another sponsor for the show. I love that I never tell you the sponsors for the show.
Bro, you gotta tell me. I guess it's better you don't tell me, but I had no idea.
I like just springing them on you like right on air.
That's awesome.
Like, I said this from day one. It's not the IPAs.
Oh.
I said this from day one. I will never allow a sponsor on the show unless I personally like pick them out. And I picked out the sponsor. I reached out to them and I was like, hey, you guys want to sponsor the show? I love what you guys have been doing. And I would love to talk about it on my channel a little bit. And they were like, sure, let's do it. Hustler Casino is sponsoring this episode of Embrace the Grind. Let's go.
Let's go. I've been watching their streams. They're so good.
Hustler Casino just added Hustler Casino Live. The quality of the stream is top notch. It's high quality, highest in the space. For a live stream, like, you're getting crispy, buttery shots. They have other guys with cameras on their shoulders, getting in the moment shots. Like, no other live stream is doing this.
And you can tell the way that they're really attacking this show with the way they put it together. They're trying to disrupt shit. They're trying to be the top dog. And anytime someone comes in the space and they have the resources and the kind of contacts that the owners of the Hustler Live have, you're in for a treat. And I've been watching the streams and it's been great action. Yeah. The production is insane. I know Patrick works on there too.
Yeah, Patrick is the director, I believe.
Yeah,
so a bunch of my friends are working there, and you know, I just did a meetup at Hustler, and I really love what they're doing for the vlogging community, the poker community in general. So it's like probably the only casino in LA that feels like a Vegas casino. It's like, you know, all the other places in LA kind of feel like card rooms. You know?
Yeah.
But so this is kind of like, this is bar none my favorite place. So thanks again for sponsoring the episode, and cheers.
Cheers to you, Hustler Live.
Cheers. Okay. So yeah, celebration of that. But back to the tournaments. I wanted to talk about something that I saw on Instagram lately that really it really like evoked a lot of emotion inside of me, and I won't read it word for word. I'll let you talk more about it. It stemmed from a hypnotherapy session, but I thought the whole post was profound, and I kind of wanted to talk about it here on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. You know, because like you post on Instagram, you get, I don't know, 100, 200 characters, whatever it is, a couple of paragraphs. You know, a lot of people ask me after the win, and you know, oh my God, I got all these great messages, and if I didn't get a chance to reply to everybody, I'm sorry. And a lot of the not replying or really speaking out much was, I really had no idea what to say because I was feeling really empty around the whole experience. Like I didn't really experience much joy, and it was obviously really puzzling to me because, you know, this is such a big life accomplishment. So I scheduled an appointment with my IC, Dan Heskett, who is a hypnotherapist. He actually studied under Elliot Rowe, who is a Run It Once pro. I think he does work with them. And it's hypnotherapy. And if you guys have never done hypnotherapy before, it's very interesting. I've done other forms, and this one is quite different. The way that they work with you, the only way I can really describe it is you feel like, have you ever seen the movie Inception?
Yeah.
You feel like somebody's in there, and you're like, wow, somebody is in here. And it's very alarming because...
So it's like a guided meditation where someone's coaching you and talking to you about things?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
But you're in this state where you're like, you're really relaxed, and you feel like your subconscious is them talking, kind of. And it's like I had this moment where I was like, how did you get in here? No one's supposed to be in here. Like, you know, so it took me a few times to open up and like to really...
I'd imagine
trust.
this takes a while.
You really got to have a kind of a connection with the person you're working with, in my experience. But anyway, so I had a session with my hypnotherapist, and I wanted to explore this because I was like, it doesn't make any sense. And so through the session, we were doing a visualization, and he had me walk back through time, and I wound up at this place. And the crazy thing about this stuff is you have no idea where you're going to go or what you're going to see or how you're going to feel. And I found myself at Treasure Island 14 years ago, and I was wearing business casual clothing, trying out to be a dealer. And I remember I had moved to Vegas to be a professional poker player, and it just wasn't working out. Poker was tough. I wasn't good enough. I was probably running bad too. And I was broke. I had no money. And, you know, I have Christy to think about. I can't just not make money and be completely broke and then just, you know, at some point something has to give. So I was like, I need to get a job. And I mean, I want to be in poker still, so I'll try to be a dealer. No dealing experience. So I go there. One of my friends was the floor manager there. And he's like, I'll give you an audition because we're friends, even though you don't have experience. Typically, we wouldn't do that. So I'm sitting there, and all the live games are going around me, and I'm seeing all these regs that I play with, and inside I'm just dying because I just...
Like they see you there.
They see me there dealing, like they know.
We were
like,
regs in the game. Like you more so than me. I played a
Yeah.
little bit more at Planet Hollywood, but like that was one of your places that you played at all the time.
Yeah, I was there. That was basically where I played.
And you were known as a pro. Like you're like...
Yeah, they're like, oh, this guy's like one of the pros here or whatever. And then you see that guy like in dealing, trying to deal, you know, like he couldn't make it. And all I could feel was their eyes on me, all of the people at my table that were the floor staff and the other dealers. And I'm like trying to pitch the cards to people, and I'm like missing people, exposing cards, missing action. And I just failed miserably. And they were just like, look, man, like, you know, sorry, but like it's not going to work out. And I just remember leaving the poker table, walking away back to my car, just thinking like, I'm not even good enough to pitch the cards to these guys. Like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Like, I moved out here to play poker. I'm all of a sudden in this town, Las Vegas, that feels like everybody in that town is like, what the fuck are you doing here? And like on the inside, I just feel like a failure and a fraud. And I'm like, how did I wind up here? And so that moment came to me in this visualization. And then my hypnotherapist Dan was like, imagine that you could talk to that guy right now. What would you say? And I just like kind of shocked me, and I was like, wow, like that was me, you know, that was me 14 years ago. And here I am, like just won this 1.4 million, just won a tournament the week before. The woman of my dreams, we've been through hell and back, and we're going to have a baby in a couple of days. And like, I just told him, I was like, I don't think he would believe me if I told him. And then he said, well, what if you could just show him on a movie screen? Like if you could just pull up a projector and just play it for him. And I was like, it just kind of like stuck to me, like right in that moment, like, wow, look how far I've come. And like, I forgot who I was and where I came from.
Yeah.
And I just never thought that could happen to me, you know, because you always hear like, it's like a cliche thing, like never forget where you came from. I'm like, oh, I'll never forget where I came from.
Yeah.
Like I'm, you know, this fucking poor Mexican kid that grew up with nothing. And, you know, like those are my roots. Like I know, like, you know, I identify more with that. And yeah, I just like, I got so far away from it, and I didn't realize it until I had that session with my therapist. And it was like, as soon as we got done with that and I walked away, I was like in a good place, and I had peace and I had gratitude, and I just had a lot of appreciation for the journey that I was on for that 14 years to get to where I am now. So really powerful, really cool.
Yeah. Sounds like your perspective was shifted.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a powerful lesson in that. I mean, obviously the lesson speaks for itself, but something that came up for me is, you know, when you're in the day-to-day, when you see your wife every single day, you kind of like don't really see the changes in them because it's so incremental, and you get used to the new things that come up. But like if you were to just snapshot 14 years ago when you were struggling 1-3 player on the verge of quitting, trying to get a dealing job, and then saw nothing in between, no incremental changes, and just fast forwarded to you winning, you know, $1.6 million in 2 months in poker tournaments, then you would be like, holy, mind blown, perspective shift. But everything, 14 years is a long time. Like it's like baby steps. Like you didn't get staked to start playing big tournaments, you know, like it was 1-3, and then it was like trying to get a dealing job. And then it was like, okay, we're going to rebuild and go back to 1-3 and run up a $7,000 bankroll. And then it was 2-5. And then it was like 1-3 a mix in 2-5. And then it was like, okay, then you actually stayed in 2-5 forever.
Yeah. Well, one thing a lot of people, nobody knows actually. I remember one of my good friends, Brian Kim, it's like a crusher at, like played live at the bike for a long time.
Shout out to Brian Kim.
He asked me one day, we were driving, and he was like, it just came up in conversation, like about like, oh, like how are things, and like how like bankroll came up or whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't have a bankroll. I was like, I just like, if I need money, I go play. And he was like, what do you mean you don't have a bankroll? I was like, yeah, I just like, I'll run up like 5 or 10K, and then like I'll spend it all, and then I'll go back and play. And it was like, he was just kind of like, mind was blown, and was kind of telling me like, dude, you fucking need a bankroll. You know, you need to be able to like, and it's just sounds so crazy to me now, but these are the things that I was doing like 10 years ago, is like, I would just play until I had a bankroll, and then I would spend it all, and I would have $0. Yeah. I was literally broke for the first 5 years I lived in Vegas. And I mean, like we would go to the club, and I'd have like $300 to my name. It was like a 1-3 buy-in, and we would just spend it.
It was the perfect storm of having 3 poker players living in the same house, all of which could easily beat the games back then. So me, you, and Christy all lived in the same house. And when you would lose money or go broke and spend all your money, I wouldn't be in the same place. Like I would have money, or Christy would have money.
Yeah.
And then like you would run up money, and then I would go to Sweden and spend it all. And then you would send me money to get home so that I could so that I could play. And then like I would owe too much on my taxes, and I like, hey, I need money to borrow money to pay my taxes. And then we never like didn't have money at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it was like this perfect storm of us all not being broke at the same time
Yeah.
that kept us afloat. And until we learned those lessons of like, oh, we should probably like be responsible with our bankroll and not spend all of our money. But yeah, so it is crazy to see where you started and the incremental changes and like now after having that win and like now having the perspective shift of saying, look where I came from. It's really cool to see. And I actually want to talk a little bit, some tactical advice here on Embrace the Grind podcast, because so many people have reached out to you, I'm sure, about like, how did you do it? Like, how were you able to, win tournaments over and over and over through the month of like May, June, and July? And, obviously aside from the fundamentals of poker, which like take a lot of study, and you did that for a long time, there was something that I wanted to talk about in this show that I think could translate to anyone who's watching this, regardless of their skill set. And that was the mental toughness that you showed along the way. We talked about it a little bit in a previous episode. We talked about your ability to disconnect and detach from like your phone and be very focused in tournaments and be all in terms of your attention. We talked about that in a previous episode, and something that I wanted to strive to be better at. But I think that something that can translate to everyone is the mental toughness part. And something that came up for me is you told me you were going to give up your cell phone. And I was like mind blown. I was like, first of all, it's mind blowing for me because I'm addicted to my cell phone. So it's really tough for me to like not have that dopamine hit when I pull it out and like, what's going on Instagram? By the way, I respond to everybody on Instagram. So that's hundreds of messages a day that I'm like responding to. I don't even want to look and see what my phone usage is going to be. There's like a little section in your phone. I'm going to splash it onto the screen right now so that everybody can like make fun of my addiction, because I'm sure that it's out of control.
Yeah, I think, so for me, the thing I think I do well, or one thing I would give myself praise for, is that if I see that there's something in my life that I think needs to be changed, I change it right away. And that sometimes I can change right back, or it causes some other deviation from that. And the cell phone use is one of those things where I recognize that I have an addiction to my cell phone as well. And that not only that dopamine hit, but there's this like, I mean, like I've been with Christy forever. I never really had that like sleep around phase, but I imagine it's like that where you're like having meaningless sex all the time. If that's a thing that people like,
I can see that.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, you get this like hit initially, and then immediately after you feel terrible about yourself, or you feel like that was what was happening every time I was picking my phone, and then like a couple of mindless scrolling, and then whatever. And so I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I don't even fucking need a phone anyway. So like I'm fortunate in being a poker player. I don't have a real world job, and I'm about to be a father. So if I just get rid of my phone, and I can get like an Apple Watch or maybe a flip phone, and I can do all these things from a computer. If I need to be on Telegram, or if I do want to still use Instagram or something, I can just sit at a computer desk and I can log in and do that. So so I'm going to be giving that up, and I'm really looking forward to that, because a lot of that time I can now spend with my son or with Christy. And it's not this perfect thing. Like maybe I'll hate it and I'll go back to my phone in like a week or a month. But the point is that I act and I try.
Yeah.
And then from there, I get new information. And then now I have an opportunity to do something different. So, you'll see me.
I have some interesting facts for you on cell
Yeah,
phones.
I'm curious, actually.
The average user will tap, swipe, and click their cell phone 2,617 times per day. That is mind-blowing.
That's average?
Yeah.
20 what?
47% of U.S. smartphone users say they could not live without their smartphone. Like it's a non-negotiable. 47%. I'm actually one of those 47%, so I can't talk. But I play poker on my phone,
Yeah.
and like it's like kind of important for me to do that. You did that for a long time.
I did, yeah.
You had an iPad like sitting on your desk
I know.
that was like, so that you could play and like be more optimized for playing poker.
Yeah.
And I think once you had that tournament score, you kind of made the decision that like you didn't want to play app poker anymore.
Yeah.
Is just because like you don't enjoy it, or?
Well, the thing that happens with app poker is that you can always find a game. Like whenever I put the phone down, it was always like, oh, maybe I should check the games. And it was this addiction.
Yeah. And like you also had this thing where you knew that if you did check the games and logged in and played, you were theoretically making like $150 an hour.
Yeah.
So like how do you pull yourself away from that when you know that like we're standing waiting on an Uber and you know that if you play for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, that you could make money?
Yeah, it was always just like a constant distraction to the point at which I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
Man, those are some crazy stats. Are there more, or those
Yeah,
those are the big ones?
I got some other ones here, but basically the way that the world is going, some of these stats are saying is that over half of the world is going to have a smartphone within the next like year. Over half of the world. And you got to think about like what the world entails. Like the world entails like
third world countries,
India, sub-Saharan Africa, places that don't even have cell phone towers,
Yeah. And one of the things that I didn't mention that I think is important for me, and again, like everyone needs to make their own choices. Like I'm sure that this isn't practical or reasonable for many people, but I like just being honest with myself. Like my son is going to look to me for things in this world. He's going to model his beliefs and things that he sees from his father and his mother. And if he grows up and he sees that his dad doesn't have a phone or a smartphone or whatever it is, and like, sure, I'm sure he'll have like some tablet use and like he'll get a phone and at some point, but he's going to see hopefully the person that he looks up to and models his, many things off of, that it wasn't important to me and that I, for whatever reason, placed emphasis on not having it or using it often. And I don't want that for my son. I don't want my son to be a slave to this thing, like we all have been. So anyway, it's kind of like a personal thing that I've been on this mission to do.
I've mentioned this before, but you're kind of like my guru in a lot of ways. When you kind of do things, I'm like, I want to do that as well. I want to see if I can go down that path and learn something as well. The one thing was you being focused at the poker table and not being on your phone and being very aware of just like the game and paying attention to everyone. And I said that I was going to start meditating like 4 episodes ago. And at this moment in time, I'm not like even having a practice, but here talking on camera, I'm gonna dedicate myself to that. I don't think I've meditated one time since then. So that's a perfect example of mental toughness.
Yeah.
Like saying you're going to do something and actually doing it.
That's so like I do a lot of coaching in poker, and also like I've mentored a few like poker players and other things like relationship and life. That's the number one thing across the board that people struggle with. And for those of you watching at home, I'm sure many of you, it's the same for you, is that you know what you need to do, or you say that you're going to do something and then you don't do it. And you do that not once, not twice, but it's a habit. It's that you continually ignore it, and simply starting to shift that to keeping your word, to focusing on these things and really following through. That's like, if you just focused only on that, like your life would change exponentially. I don't care what it is, if it's poker related, relationship, career, whatever. And you just said, like I myself, like we all fall victim to this. And it's not that you just like, I always say what I do and that's just how it is, or I die. No, like that's not realistic. But you can take like, to where maybe you were, doing something like 10 times a day that you said you were going to do that you didn't do. And that happens maybe once, twice, 3 times a day. Your life is going to be phenomenally different for the better. So focus on that. I'm telling you, it's a gold mine. The next time you tell yourself you're going to do something and that you don't do it, don't beat yourself up over it, but think deeply about why you didn't do it, how it didn't happen, and then try to strategize on a way so that you can have it happen.
Yeah, and we can do that in the smallest of ways, right? So as a poker player, like we don't really need to wake up at a certain time, but we could say, tomorrow, I'm going to wake up at 7:30 and it's going to be a non-negotiable. And it's like the smallest of things, But when 7:30 rolls around, you didn't go to bed till 1:30. Maybe you don't want to wake up. The littlest of things that you can do in your life to track this, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And I don't want to get like so preachy here, but like that's so true.
Yeah.
If you say that you're going to wake up at 7:30 this one day and you don't do it, you can't do it this one time. That's going to like leak into every single other aspect of your life. Something that we've been working on with Edgar.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up Edgar because it's you've been working with him. I've been working with him as well. And it's like we talk to him a lot about discipline and doing what you know is right. So in poker, it's really easy to go on tilt, however that looks for you. And really that's just a lack of discipline. That's doing something that you know you're not supposed to do because you just have some emotional response that you're not able to control. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, like Edgar is going through this. We all go through this in poker. And, the sooner you can get it under control, like the more money you're going to be able to make in poker for sure.
And speaking of the more money you're going to be able to make in poker, the World Series of Poker is back, baby. By the time it's coming out in a couple of days, but like World Series main event is scheduled. All of October is pretty much lined up for tournament after tournament after tournament. And it's going all the way up to basically Thanksgiving. The club that I've been in with Rampage and a bunch of the other poker vloggers, we have a Wednesday night points league where we've been qualifying people to play the main event bucket list item. We've already qualified 3 people to play, and it's growing. Like there was 150 people that played in the Wednesday night tournament last week. And what I love about it is that this is very grassroots, and I started it with like a lot of people that really support me. So the first 3 people that won seats are my friends, like people that I know pretty well, because they were like in there the first week that I announced it. They were in there. They've been in there since the very beginning, and now it's kind of growing to a little bit bigger. So some of the people that are leading the points right now, I don't know quite as well, but we could end up sending like 7 people to play the WSOP main event. Likely all 7 of them have never played it before. So
and it's not just that they get to play. Like if you sign up and play, you're basically there's a way that people are all getting a piece, right?
Yeah. So if you've played it, if you start participating in these, you're going to get a piece of the person that gets sent to the main event. So we're going to have like a whole squad.
Oh yeah.
In the main event.
The first year I cashed in the main, I remember a guy, he even commented on one of the posts about me winning something recently. He was a product of one of these leagues, and we were on the money bubble, and I made a really big bluff on him, and he folded a set of queens. And in the post, he said, "Oh, that set of queens was probably a bad fold, huh? Because I posted some crazy hand or something." But I remember
he never knew until just
probably
this
not.
episode
Maybe
right here.
yeah, maybe now.
This is him finding out.
No. But I remember like how special it was, because I was like I'd never experienced. I didn't know. We were talking. He was like, "Oh yeah," and there's points, and people come, and then like I won the seat, and then all these people are getting a piece of this, and then like seeing how happy he was and updating people, and there were a bunch of people there.
Oh, the rail for this thing is going to be so huge.
And I was, dude, it's special. Like I didn't know anything about it until that moment, but like whoever wins the seat and goes, you have like hundreds of people behind you sweating everything. And obviously when it doesn't work out, it sucks, and it's going to suck no matter what. But when you start to go on a run and things start to go well, and you get to share that with all these people that are in this experience with you, it's intense.
Yeah, I've cashed the main event 4 times, and it's been so fun every single time. Like the first 2 times that I cashed it, I did not have any platform. I didn't have anybody following me on social media. But the number of people that were my friends that, because I had never made content or anything those first 2 times, I still was blown up with Facebook and Instagram messages of people that were just so excited for me. And then once I started making content the last 2 times, I couldn't even read my messages. There was like, 1,000 messages, and it is so fun just going deep. So I'm super excited to have all of these newcomers to the main event and have like the whole Vibe squad behind their back. supporting them. But I do want to talk about something with the World Series of Poker that I'm slightly concerned about. And, you know, this is definitely not going to be political
hot topic
or
right now.
COVID related, but the WSOP has just come out with some new rules regarding COVID because of the Delta variant and the number of people that have been getting COVID lately. So I'm going to read the addendum to the WSOP rules so that you guys can all hear it here on the show. I'll probably put it up on the screen right now.
Well, a lot of people are worried that the World Series may not even happen. So like they came out with this, and I think
this is encouraging because it means that like, hey, we know that like COVID numbers are spiking. We know that's a thing right now. And we're going to institute this rule. Makes me think that they're still going to have the World Series.
yeah.
But with that said, here's the rule. It's rule number 115. I don't know if it's some sort of addendum or whatever it is, but in accordance with the guidelines I don't even know what this word is, promulgated by the Centers of Disease Control, the Rio reserves the right to remove any participant from any WSOP event at any time prior to or during the WSOP event in its sole and absolute discretion for any health or safety related reasons, included but not limited to if the participant is determined by the Rio in its sole discretion to have received a positive COVID-19 test or come in close proximity within 6 feet or for 15 cumulative minutes of any person that has tested positive for COVID-19, or if any participant refuses to undergo any health and safety screening conducted by the Rio to participate in the WSOP event. If the participant is removed from the WSOP event pursuant to this paragraph, and for no other reason, the participant shall not be entitled to compensation or remuneration of any type other than that participant has already been awarded prior to the being removed. So if they like are removed and they're already in the money or something, they'll get that piece. Basically, the WSOP is saying this by this paragraph. They're saying we can remove you
For
at
any
any
reason.
reason, for any health and safety reason,
Yeah.
if we determine that you have COVID or that you've been in close proximity with something that has COVID. So obviously, the poker community was up in arms over this.
I just now hearing about it somehow, but wow, that's incredible. So basically, you know, this is what everyone worries about in the US when they're like, we need to protect our freedom of speech. We need to protect all of our rights because like, you know, if they start to take this, then they can take that. And you wind up in a system where they can just say like, oh, you know, he looks sick. We're going to disqualify you on day 6 of the main.
That's what people are upset about. They're like, what if someone has a cold or is coughing and then the floor,
Yeah.
this guy with all the chips on my left,
Yeah.
he literally just coughed 6 times and you need to check him out right now.
Yeah, and the
Take
guy's
his temperature.
Yeah. I mean,
Who knows what like lengths people will take it to.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's why people were rightfully upset with that because the rule is so ambiguous and like hard to
it gives
figure
them
out.
so much power.
Yeah, and then you're just out of luck, like $10,000 buy-in.
Oh my God, that's so scary to imagine like being like the final 2 tables of a big tournament and someone's like, his nose is running. I mean, they basically said for any reason, like, and they're like, that guy had COVID, he was 6 feet, and you're like, there's so many things that can happen with this. I'm really curious to see if there'll be enough backlash to.
There was like 3 days of Twitter backlash over this where they're like, WSP, what are you doing? Like this rule just like seems so tough for the players. Like they could get removed for any reason. So anyways, there was a lot of memes over it and things like that, but rightfully so. It's obviously, could be huge and detrimental to people participating. So the WSP came out with a follow-up statement.
Okay.
And I'll read the follow-up statement after 3 days of mudslinging on Twitter. You know, the WSOP catches a lot of flack from people all the time. So this was their follow-up. The health and safety of the World Series of Poker participants and team members is our top priority. To that end, Caesars Entertainment will continue to operate in the manner consistent with the CDC guidelines while following the applicable rules and mandates to our local government and regulators at all times. Consistent with current CDC guidelines, WSRP participants who are known to have been exposed to a person who has tested positive for COVID-19 will not be required to leave the tournament and quarantine if they are fully vaccinated within the appropriate timing parameters and remain asymptomatic since the time of exposure. I don't know. I don't even know where to go with this, you know?
I think that's like a reasonable, that's like, I mean, yeah, regardless of what I think, it sounds like they're listening and they're moving in the direction that the players want them to move in. I'm sure a lot of people don't want them to move here.
Yeah.
A lot of people maybe, like, to me, that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll conclude the statement. We recognize the COVID-19 public health situation is constantly evolving, which leaves the door open for them to change the rules again.
Yeah.
We will continue to work with our team of health and safety experts, and all our policies are subject to change. We remain committed to providing the safest environment possible for the return of the World Series of Poker.
Weird fucking times, bro.
I know.
Fucking weird time out there right now.
I think that we can safely just assume that this pandemic is over and it's now officially an endemic, meaning that it's always going to be here and that we're always going to be trying to navigate in a way where, as best as possible, like, you know.
There's no way that everyone's going to be happy here.
No.
Like, regardless, whatever the World Series decides to do, there's going to be a section that are going to be very unhappy. So
at the end of the day, we all want the World Series to return.
Yeah.
And, you know, health and safety guidelines are a thing. Government is like mandating certain things. So I understand that the WSP has a really tough job with making everyone happy here. I think they're just doing the best they can. And I for one, am happy that the WSOP is back. I'm going to participate.
Yeah.
I'm going to roll the dice because I'm a professional gambler.
That's what we do, man.
And we're going to play in the WSOP. We're going to send a bunch of people. We're going to qualify a bunch of people to play in the WSOP. And it's going to be a
Vibe Squad's rolling deep, man.
Vibe Squad takeover.
Ooh, man.
Yeah. So that's gonna pretty much wrap it up. We have some future guests coming up that I haven't told you about. Andy Stacks Poker.
Dude, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's going to be on the next episode of Embrace the Grind.
Yeah.
Ryan Feldman. I want to talk to him about everything that's been going on with Hustle.
Ryan's like low key, like one of the most like powerful people in poker. It's crazy. He just like positioned himself really well. He's a really smart guy.
Yeah, and he has an interesting past. You know, he came from the NBA, like
Yep.
doing coverage on that, and worked his way into poker. So a lot of fun stuff coming up with Embrace the Grind. Thanks for reconnecting with me again, bro. Thanks for sharing your story on where you came from. I mean, we came from the same place, but I love hearing it. And that goes without saying that I'm proud of you. So
Yeah, well, we're going to do some celebrating tonight, and we'll be celebrating you as well. We got some things to celebrate for you too. So
for sure. Yeah. And I'm coming, man. I already announced it. I told everyone that I'm going to start, not losing money at tournaments at some point.
Dude, I'm so excited to be on your rail. You have no idea. I'll paint my chest and then I won't wear a shirt. So
a deep run is coming for the Vibe Squad. For myself, like I said, I was going to add 6 figures to my Hendon mob. So it's coming. And thank you guys for being on the ground floor of it and supporting this by dropping likes, dropping comments, sharing this episode. Appreciate you letting us into your living rooms from my living room here in San Diego. Thank you. We will see you on a future episode of Embrace the Grind. Take care.
I'ma give it all I got, like grinding every day.